Hi everyone, this is Frank Demora here with the End Times Research Ministry, connecting the dots between Bible prophecy and current events. And right now I want to get right into these earthquakes that we've been seeing and connecting the dots between what the warnings from God, what he has to say about anybody who comes against Israel or takes sides against Israel, and I call it God's curse. Now, before I get to the scriptures about God's curse, I want to connect earthquakes, because many times God uses earthquakes. We know that in the scriptures. For example, in Ezekiel chapter 38, we read about a war that's going to happen in the future. And part of what's going to happen in that war, when God fights for the nation of Israel, he's going to send a massive earthquake. And this is part of the curse that's coming against the people who are coming against Israel. This is one of the ways he takes them out. So we know that he uses earthquakes to show people that he is in control and he's the one protecting Israel. Now, you see in two different places, in Matthew 24:7 and also in Luke 21:11, where Matthew talks about there's going to be many earthquakes. You see that right here. And then we see in Luke 21:11 where the Lord tells us we're supposed to be looking for these great earthquakes, right? So now that we have the scriptures, knowing about the earthquakes, the signs that we're supposed to be looking at, the signs of God's curse. Well, in Genesis 12:3, the Lord told us that if anybody blesses Israel, he's going to bless them. But if anybody curses Israel, of course, they will be cursed. And then in Joel chapter 3, verse 2, the Lord warns us about what happens to people who try to divide up the land of Israel. And we know that's destruction to anybody who tries to do this. It says, I will also gather all nations that will bring them down into the valley of Jehoshaphat. And this is the valley of destruction. This is where the Lord is saying what he's going to do to the people who what? Well, scattered among the nations and parted my land. So anybody who tries to part the land, we know that there's destruction coming on those people. And of course, one that you should be, at least if you've been coming to my website or my YouTube videos, Zechariah 12:3 should be very familiar, because the Lord told us anybody who messes around with the Jews in Jerusalem, burdens themselves over Jerusalem, will be cut into pieces. And that's definitely a curse. And in that day I will make Jerusalem a burdensome stone for all people, and all that burden themselves will be cut into pieces, though all the people of the earth are gathered together against it. Now let me show you a little bit about the past and my warnings that I've given to you when I see the curse coming, when I hear what the Lord is saying to me, and I put up red flags. For example, back in March of 2009, you can either go to Google and you can highlight this and then go to Google and it'll bring up my prophecy site, or you can just go down to the link that I provide, and this is, you'll see March the 9th of 2011. And I talk about the curse continues in March 2009. The post went out in 2011, or actually on the 9th, and I talk about the issue about what happens to Japan, because Japan, let me scroll down here as I'm talking, but what happens in Japan. So here it is. I put up the red flag, and this is definitely a warning when I get this from what I believe that the Lord is showing me. I'll put that red flag up every single time. And it says that about a week and a half ago, I wrote to you warning that another huge earthquake was on the way. And in that post, I stated the following, that you may be wondering why the red flag is up. This is to warn you to watch for another huge earthquake. Now, what had happened is I was talking to people, and I told the people that there was an article that I was reading, and God showed me that the curse had fallen on Japan, and to watch what was going to happen. And so the warning went out. I put this warning out. It said, so I went on to say, if the birth pangs are getting worse, we should start seeing even bigger quakes the great earthquakes. In Luke 21:11, Jesus warned the following, and there will be great earthquakes in various places, and famines and pestilence, and there will be fearful sights and great signs from heaven. And you can see I highlighted here, I am going to keep the red flag up because you will all need to see Christ's word should not be taken lightly. And when it comes to the curse, really you shouldn't take anything lightly when the Lord says he's going to curse somebody for coming against Israel. So we are in those end times birth pangs, and you will see more of these huge quakes in the near future. Christ wants you to believe in him, but much more than that, he wants you to receive him as your Lord so that he can keep you from entering the 7-year tribulation. I ended the quote there. Now let me toss in the Genesis curse of God upon anyone who comes against Israel. See Genesis 12:3, which I already gave to you. And then I posted here, you'll see that earthquake. It says, here we go again. Another huge earthquake today, and notice the date it hit, March the 8th, 2011. You will see why this is important as you continue to read. And then it goes on to tell you that a 7.2 magnitude earthquake that struck off the coast of Japan this afternoon has triggered a small tsunami, but with no reports of damage. All right, and then it goes on to give you some other news, and then I put down, you may want to keep this in mind, the words of Christ in Luke 21:11. And of course, this is about the waves that I'm talking about. Warns to us to watch the roaring of the seas and the waves. Not only have we had a huge storm system push the waves, but we have seen many huge earthquakes that cause the tsunamis to also move the waters to create waves. And you will see more of these type of news in the not too distant future. Watch YouTube video below. Now this is where I get in a little bit more detail about the curse. Do you remember the date that I told you to keep in mind? March 8th of 2011. This news was also reported, and it came out of Hebron, and it said this. A handover ceremony today between Japan and the United Nations World Food Program, the WFP, marks Japan's continued commitment to provide food assistance to the poorest of poor in the West Bank occupied Palestinian territory. Japan's contribution of the U.S. $3.1 million comes in support of the Palestinian Authority. The PA Ministry of Social Affairs Social Safety Net Reform Plan, and under the plan, the Palestinian people living in extreme poverty receive food ration. The cash grant to help insurance on the regular basis. The distribution of food rations is ensured by the WFP as part of the assistance to the destitute activity, the close cooperation with the Ministry of Social Affairs in the West Bank. Now, the earthquake hit the same day Japan was giving funds to Israel's enemies. Now, I know a lot of you may be saying, well, Japan was trying to do a humanitarian effort by supporting them with all this kind of money for food assistance. But the Lord said that if you help, at least we know this from the scriptures, if you go against Israel and you're helping Israel's enemy, then the curse falls on you. Now, you'd have to take, if you don't like that, then you're going to have to take that up with God. But in this case, Japan did exactly what they weren't supposed to do. They were aiding the people who were trying to destroy Israel. All right, so, and again, I quote the Zechariah 12:3, and then you'll see here that I put up some more information. And it says, another section of the same report shows Japan is working for a Palestinian state in Israel. In other words, the Joel 3:2 comes into play, where the Lord said anybody who tries to divide the nation. So, if you want to, cancel out what they're doing with the food here for the Palestinians and just replace, they're trying to divide Israel, and you know why the curse came. The Japanese government is determined to continue its support for the Palestinian people, and it goes on to tell, as well as they're taking a stand for this independent Palestinian state. I'm just cutting it short for you for the sake of a long video. It says, I hope Japan is getting the message today. Take a look at what happened so far today in Japan. The red flag is still up. So what I did is I pointed on what was taking place with the earthquake, and I showed you that earthquake that struck Japan at 7.2. And then, as you know, I've warned many, many times that, watch what was going to happen in Japan. The red flag is still up. I mentioned that it's up over here. I'm going to keep the red flag up, and everybody knows by now that 2 days after this went up, this warning, Japan had that 9.0 earthquake and the tsunami that just took out a large part of Japan. All right, here we go. We're back at my site again. So let me scroll down so we can connect the dots for you. Now you have all of the scriptures, the warning. You saw what I warned the last time about Japan, and you're probably asking why you're doing this again. Well, I want you to see something. There was another huge earthquake. A 6.9 earthquake striking Japan. All right, now this took place just a few days ago. Today's the 4th. This is February the 2nd. An earthquake, you'll see it. Here's the link. You can get to that link if you want to. The 6.9 earthquake. Now what's really interesting is because I believe that the Lord, just like He did in March 9th or March 8th, whatever those dates were, back in 2011 when the red flag went up, I don't believe that Japan learned their lesson because Japan, again, is working to divide the nation of Israel, working with the Palestinian people. And so we had the earthquake, a 6.9 earthquake that struck Japan. And the headline of the news, now 2 days ago, when you get into my book, there is a chapter in my book that's called The Curse of God, and I show you all the things that are happening either on the very day or just a couple days after one of the world leaders goes against Israel, what happens. And so this is only a 2-day period of difference between the 6.9, what I call Japan's warning, and what had happened in this article, where Japan again they're hosting a meeting of Asian countries next week. This is what the news is telling us, to discuss the financial assistance for the Palestinian Authority. And so again, we see Japan taking the wrong side, and they're against God. All right? So you got this massive earthquake that strikes. You got them talking about coming together again. And let me go, if you will, I'm going to go right up and pull the earthquake report. But before I do that, let me get into, I'll show you this report here. This is the one that I'm talking about, the East Asian nations to meet on the Palestinian aid report. You'll see the date, February the 4th. Japan is to host a meeting of the Asian countries next week to discuss the financial assistance for the Palestinian Authority, a report said Monday. Ministers from Japan, South Korea, and several member countries of the associated Southeast Asian nations, look at this, Thailand and Indonesia, you'll see why I mention this. So now that you have this fresh in your mind, we'll see Japan and the Indonesian nations. Let me go back and show you, if you will, not that one. Here's the latest earthquakes in the last 7 days. Okay? I want you to take place now, or take a look at what's happening. You see Japan, Papua New Guinea, we see these earthquakes. You'll see, look at here, Taiwan, they're in there, Japan, Indonesia, the nations that have come against or are going to sit down, as we see here, who want to sit down and try to help the the Palestinians, Thailand, those are the nations who have been shaken in the last couple of days, and I believe it's a warning from God. Now, what we need to know is this meeting is going to be going on, I believe, on the 15th or the 13th of February to 14th. So let's keep an eye on what happens during those meetings, because I think that we're liable to see some significant events taking place. God's word definitely needs to be taken to heart, because there's a list, it's an ongoing list of things that have happened to the nations that have come in against Israel in the last days. So this is why I wanted to bring this out to you, so that you can keep your eyes on what really is going on. All right, so let me go back here now that you have a little bit of insight about this earthquake. And of course, just I think now it was 4 days ago when I put up another red flag, and I told you that the Lord had showed me that there was going to be some big quakes that are going to be coming quickly. And obviously that was the case, because I think in a matter of 5 days now, or over the weekend, there's been something like 8 big earthquakes. So just pay attention. These quakes are going to come. They're going to come often. And this is one of the reasons why I'm putting up the scriptures for you in Matthew 24:7 and Luke 21:11. Now, as far as this prophecy, Daniel 12:4, increased knowledge in the last days, I thought this would be pretty cool for you to take a look at, because we see the increase in knowledge in our generation specifically because of the computers. What's happening with the computers only in our generation, and we've come up with all different kinds of high-tech methods of helping people, and some of them aren't so good, like warring weapons and whatnot. But I want to show you a few cases of what our increased knowledge is bringing. Now, here is an article that talks about this new weaponry that is going to be used. Let me bring that up for you. See if I have it here. Well, let me do this. Let me click on the link. When you're at my site, you'll be able to get this. So let me go to it. All right, you see mini drones. Army deploys the tiny helicopters. And this is what these tiny helicopters look like. And the British troops are going to be using these nano helicopters. And what they're going to be doing is obviously deploying these helicopters with the troops. When the troops go in that they're advancing, they'll send in these tiny they're called nano helicopters, and then they'll be able to spot the enemies that are coming against the British troops. So with that, let me go back for a second here, and I'll play this video so you get an idea. You'll see it right here. This is what it looks like. They're just showing you how it maneuvers around. You can do a lot of things with it. Let me get rid of this. Now, this is pretty cool stuff, especially if you're in the military and you want a heads up on where your enemy is. This is pretty cool. And of course, there was no other generation who would have been able to do anything like this. Now, if you think this is cool, let me stop this and go into the next one. This is really fascinating. And Chapter 3 of my book, which is the increase of knowledge and people traveling back and forth, is one of my favorite chapters, because it shows all what this generation is capable of doing. And of course, this is fulfillment of prophecy. But look at this. This is going to be really interesting.
We developed a nano quadrotor capable of agile flight. vehicles can fly as a formation. We developed a method to transition between formations in 3D. The team can also navigate in environments with obstacles.
No other generation in the history of man is able to do anything like this. This is our generation, just an example of what God has allowed our generation to do as we've increased in knowledge. And so it is, it's important. Now let me show you another article here. In my post of January the 4th of 2013, I gave you some news concerning the F-16 jets that the United States was going to send to Egypt. And then I told you in a video that I made, and I'm not sure who took that video down. I'm the only one who has access to it, but I believe that there's some actions behind the scenes that removed the video, and in that video, that it's still up, but you can't get to it. And in that video, and in a report, I know that many of you who saw that remember that I said that the United States, there was an article that came out that said that the United States would nix these Egyptian helicopters because of what was taking place, and because Egypt now was leaning towards becoming an enemy of Israel. And I said, look, don't believe anything the United States says, the government of the United States, because there's no way that they're going to stop giving these jets over to the Egyptians. Because Barack Obama, his past 4 years, has already shown us that, yes, he's saying that he's a friend of Israel, but his actions are the exact opposite. We see that in many, and you'll be able to Google that, Frank Demora and Barack Obama against Israel, and you'll see all these different articles that I said and that I posted. But what I wanted to show you here is, look, I want you to take a look at Fox News. I'm going to click this. Just take a second to come up here. Now, this is January the 2nd, 2013, right? Pressure bills to nix. These are the F-15 jets that I was talking about. Later this month, the new government in Egypt is scheduled to begin taking delivery of the 10 F-16 fighter jets and the 200 Abrams tanks. All right, this came out in January. This is the one that I was talking about. And I warned you that don't listen to this garbage, because they are going to give these jets, no doubt, by the way, that Egypt is mentioned in the Psalm 83 war, and it will be no doubt that some of these jets are going to be used against Israel. So you have the United States of America giving arms that are going to be used against Israel, and of course, anybody who does anything of this nature they have the curse falling on them. All right, let me bring you to the CBN News, and this is, of course, January the 24th of 2013. So this is the actual update that I'm giving to you, what happened. And you can see from the headline, the U.S. gives F-16 jets to Egypt despite Morsi's flip. So in other words, what I warned you is actually what the United States did. And if the United States thought that Egypt was going to be an enemy of Israel, they would have, they wouldn't have aided an enemy of Israel if we were their friends. But this is not the case with Barack Obama. Again, what he says is not what he does. Despite the anti-Semitic remarks by the Egyptian president Mohamed Morsi, the United States has gone ahead with its gift of 4 F-16 fighter jets to Egypt. Fox News reported the jets left the Naval Air Base in Fort Worth, Texas on Tuesday. The U.S. will give more high-tech F-16s along with these 200 Abrams tanks, which I showed you in that last article, to Egypt this year as part of the foreign aid package. So again, the United States is aiding the enemy of Israel. And nothing good is going to be coming of this. God's curse has remained on the United States. Watch what happens in the United States. You watch the economy, watch natural disasters. All I know is that we've been watching results of the people that are coming against Israel, and something always happens to those people that take the position against God's word and against God for his nation Israel. I wanted you to know this so that you can keep aware of it, and we'll all be watching the news to see what happens. All right, again, I want to thank everybody for coming to my YouTube channel. Please take, again, if you just found my YouTube channel, go to my website, which is the End Times Research Ministry, and you'll see this red arrow. Just put your email address here, and or your name and your email address, and you'll get my updates on a daily basis. Thank you, everyone.